Well, Project Decade just became moot, which is kind of a blessing in disguise. I was way too ambitious and bit off way more than I could really chew without dropping my other projects, and even if I did, the odds of Blizzard listening were so low. It's just, what was I thinking? I guess I wanted to be a hero, but thank goodness the need for something this unrealistic has evaporated. At least at this point, Blizzard's announcement of the new talent system for Dragonflight brings most of the things I was looking for to the table. I mean, what were my goals with Project Decade again? Besides being a hero? Well, there was indefinite extendability so our characters can grow from expansion to expansion instead of losing things that we gain during an expansion like we did at the end of Legion and Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands because we had to give back all the borrowed powers. These new talents can be extended from expansion to expansion, so I'd say, check, we got indefinite extendability with Blizzard's system. Then there was ways to keep spellbar bloat from becoming a problem again, even from expansion to expansion as they continue to add things. And we got that too. Those octagonal talent choices where you pick from a few different options, those can be expanded upon easily enough with no spellbar bloat. Heck, if Blizzard sticks with this system for the long haul, and I sure hope they do, then I kind of expect more of the square active ability icons will turn into octagonal pick-something icons. And another goal was convenience, to make it as opposite as possible to the annoyance that was soulbinds and conduits. Well, you can change talents anywhere if you spend a reagent, which is a little less convenient than my idea of having upgrades swappable anytime you're out of combat, but it's pretty close, and it's just about as convenient for players, so I'm going to say check on this one. We are getting a lot more convenience with talents than we got with soulbinds and conduits. Plus, what Blizzard is doing here isn't running afoul of all the issues that my upgrade concept did. I couldn't do anything with upgrades except replace existing abilities, and for classes with fewer buttons like Arms Warriors, Affliction Warlocks, and Survival Hunters, that meant I had to either add abilities, resort to upgrading utility abilities in really strange ways, or both. Case in point, I ended up upgrading Drain Life into a multi-target main nuke for Affliction. Pretty weird, that. Also, since Blizzard isn't introducing a new system on top of talents, and are instead completely revamping talents, which was the very thing that I was afraid to do with upgrades, Blizzard is not hitting the snag that I all too frequently hit with upgrades. I couldn't really upgrade an ability that was already being replaced in the talent grids. Now, Blizzard is not running into that issue at all with this talent revamp, since the stuff that they are adding is talents, and they can move other talents around to compensate. Plus, let's not mince words, there were a lot of specs that had some huge design problems. Survival was good at nothing but AoE burst. Affliction, let's not get started. My idea didn't and couldn't do anywhere near as much to solve those specs problems as Blizzard's talent revamp can and, light willing, will do for them. So Blizzard's idea is way better than mine, thank the light. And I have no idea whether I should be more embarrassed about letting that ambitious Project Decade slide, or less embarrassed. I can hope that Blizzard looked at what I was trying to do and did it better than I could have, but, well, who knows what's going on inside Blizzard? It's not like they'd tell me, or any other player for that matter, if any one of us was some kind of inspiration to them, which is too bad, because it would be a major boost to any player's morale to find out that they were making a real, visible, measurable difference to how Blizzard does things, simply by investing their time into fan projects and concepts like Project Decade. I really wish Blizzard were a heck of a lot more transparent about where they got their ideas, what their goals were, what kinds of ideas they feel favorably and unfavorably disposed to, and why, and what kinds of player feedback has actually made them pivot. I mean, if we knew all of that stuff, if we knew what they were really thinking and why, then we players could change what we're doing and how we're doing it to help the Blizzard developers steer the game in a better direction. Hopefully we already have. They've got to be aware that Dragonflight is a sink or swim moment for World of Warcraft, and if they screw this up, well, World of Warcraft might not exist in 5 years if they screw this up. I am crossing my fingers that they get the first few drafts of their talent trees out with plenty of time for player feedback to come, and then that they'll actually pivot based on player feedback. Frequently, visibly, and talk about it a lot, because that's going to be an important thing. Making players feel like they've got actual agency for the direction the game is going. These talent trees are going to give players way more agency than ever before in their character's progression, yes, and that is a very, very good thing, and I do not want to downplay it. But I feel like it's not enough in and of itself. Agency for how the classes are designed, agency for what systems are going to be in place or get discarded, maybe even agency for how the story's going to progress, would improve players' trust in Blizzard drastically, and Blizzard knows that it needs to regain player trust. On that subject, I feel like there's cause for hope for the things that you guys know I want, because I can't seem to go for very many videos without talking about them. Getting Rebuke, Holy Radiance, and Denounce back on my spell bar. And what makes me say that is a line in their frequently asked questions about the talent trees. I am very glad they were quick to respond to our questions and had this fact out there the day after the announcement. Anyways, they said specializations that do not have a certain capability in Shadowlands, such as an interrupt, may be able to obtain it by giving up something they currently do have. Now, there aren't many classes that have some specs that have an interrupt and some that lack it. Druids, paladins, and monks are the only ones I can think of. And there were times in Torghast when I, as a holy paladin, would gladly have given up Hammer of Justice just to get my hands on Rebuke again, and hopefully this means I'll be able to do just that. And Mistbeaver monks are probably hoping for Spear Handstrike too for about the same reasons, and I hope they get it. Of course, Holy Radiance and Denounce, both of which I feel the need for more than I feel the need for Rebuke, mind you, they don't really have particularly higher odds of getting in during Dragonflight, at least not based on anything they said. I mean, they did say that talent trees will have some existing and returning abilities, and they know they need to pack their trees with appealing stuff to make it look good for players, and undoubtedly they know Denounce will be appealing, so that's some reason to hope. But there was nothing specific like there was with Rebuke. And certainly nothing for Holy Radiance. They've got to know that we're itching for these tidbits of information about what's going to be in there and what isn't, and I just hope they don't keep us waiting too long. Let's not mince words. It is cheap and it is easy for them to string players along with hope without actually giving us the things that we hope for, and stringing us along is something that they have been doing for years. I sure hope they realize they can't keep stringing us along now, not after the disaster that was Shadowlands. Now, before I close out, I want to share my thoughts on the concept of the class talent tree and the spec talent tree. From what I can tell from the frequently asked questions, this is how classes are going to get most of their abilities now. This is the new normal. It's not, I reached level such and such and gained ability so-and-so. It's, I reached a new level, got a new talent point, so I'll go to the talent trees to spend the point and get a new ability. And that's how almost all of our abilities are going to come to us. Basically, if the ability is learned from level 10 or higher, it'll be in, or perhaps I should say it'll be from, our new talent system. And I think this is okay because it provides way more flexibility and agency in how we build our characters than the old system. You know, this really reminds me of how the ways that developers got abilities onto our spell bars has evolved over time. In Vanilla and Wrath of the Lich King, there were 2 ways, and only 2, that the developers could get an ability onto our spell bars. Either it's a talent from the old talent trees, or it's a trainable ability that all players of a given class got, regardless of spec. In Cataclysm, they invented a new way of getting abilities onto our spell bars. As soon as you pick a spec at level 10, they give you 1 ability and a few passives. They invented the spec-specific ability in Cataclysm, more or less, but at the time they could only make 1 ability spec-specific per spec, and apart from that, their options were a trainable ability for all players, a deep talent that only 1 spec could get, or a shallow talent that any spec could get. Then in Mists of Pandaria, they invented trainables that only one spec could access. Consecration became protection only, Holy Radiance went from a group heal that any paladin should get to a wholly specific ability, and Inquisition went from a class-wide to retribution specific. That allowed them to, de facto, take abilities away that had been on my spellbar before, and that ability to take them away looked good to the developers because it let them combat spellbar bloat by changing the rules about how abilities arrived on my spellbar. But it looked bad to me because I found abilities like Inquisition and Consecration or Holy Wrath to be fun, totally not overpowered or underwhelming finisher for my holy power and nifty AoE damage tools respectively, and now all of a sudden I don't have these fun things in my kit anymore. It was fun to have them, and they took that fun away from me all because they invented a system that let them do that. But now they're reinventing how abilities get on our spell bars again, making it so that there are 3 different ways it can happen. Baseline class abilities from before level 10, talents in the class tree, and talents in the spec tree. And the vast majority of our abilities come from the latter 2 sources, and since we decide where the talent points go, Blizzard is putting huge amounts of agency into players' hands. On top of that, the fact that out-of-spec experience, one of the very things that made Cataclysm such a blast for me, is baked right into the class talent tree. And that makes me think that the issues that I had in Mists of Pandaria coming out of Cataclysm will be a lot less of a problem. I can probably keep Consecration, though I might have to move out other abilities to make room for it. I might be able to get a more exciting, damaging Holy Power Spender than Shield of the Righteous, which deals less damage to a single target than the Holy Power Builders deal and feels underwhelming as a result. This new talent system could fix all of that, at a price, of course. And the fact that we can swap talents quickly and conveniently means that, in a sense, we can get everything we want without spellbar bloat. Because of the convenience, talents that we don't pick are just a few clicks away. And the limitation that we can't have them all on our spell bars at the same time is a small price to pay for having them, in a way, in our kits again. I figure there will be moments where there are 4 things that could exist on our spell bar, but there's things that we could do if we got all 4 of them at the same time, but the system limits us to 2 or 3, and we'll probably lament that limitation, but to be honest, that is a way better problem to have than what we've had in the past. All this is also making me think about specs whose problems stem from or are made worse by having very few abilities. This talent revamp, which I honestly perceive primarily as a revamp to how we get abilities in the first place, it's going to provide a lot more abilities, meaning that those specs are automatically guaranteed to get revamps, hopefully revamps that'll solve their problems and add depth to their rotations and gameplay. Honestly, if I had realized that Blizzard actually had the guts to get rid of borrowed power altogether, I wouldn't have done Project Decade the way I did. Alongside the upgrade abilities that you got to keep forever was a set of passives that you paid for with a currency like Azerite or Artifact power. Some of those passives you keep at the expansion's end and some of them go away. That was semi-borrowed power, and that's what I was advocating in Project Decade. But getting rid of borrowed power altogether is even better, and I am so glad Blizzard found the courage to go that far to deliver a good experience to their players. I gotta say, this change, it's got me excited. And you know exactly what I'm looking for, denounce. Though now that I think about it, if Blizzard were inspired by me, they probably would have unpruned denounce long ago, but, well, you never know what they're thinking. Hopefully that'll change too going forward, and we will know what they're thinking. Only time will tell.